Welcome all to the Jothi webinar series where we bring on people to inspire and educate us. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Deepa Sankar, Dr. Deepa Sankar.
Hi everyone. Today's webinar has been divided into 4 sections. We'll start with a brief introduction about Dr. Deepa Sankar, followed by a session from our lovely guest, and then we will have an interaction with the guest about UN, UNICEF, rights of children, and of course, a successful life. For your kind information, we will be recording and streaming the session in YouTube and Facebook. And please mute your mics for the better quality of the session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us at another Jothi Learning Motivational session. I wanted to start by saying how grateful we are to be joined with someone who has every opportunity in her life to make our world a better place and ensure that children all around the world deserve to have a voice. Dr. Deepa Sankar encourages and inspires us all to use our privileged and blessed lives to make sure that we can all make a change one day.
Dr. Deepa is from our beautiful homeland, Kerala, Talavadi in the Alupura district, and is currently living in Uzbekistan, a former Soviet Union republic. Kuttanad is well known for its vast paddy fields and geographical peculiarities. The region has one of the lowest altitudes in India and is one of the few places in the world where you can farm below sea level.
Amia?
Geographical peculiarities.
Whether you are muted.
The region has one of the lowest altitudes in India and is one of the few places in the world where you can farm below.
Education. Bangalore University, Bachelor of Arts, Economics, Psychology and Sociology. University of Kerala, Masters of Arts, Economics. Jawaharlal Nehru Vishwavidyalaya, Masters of Philosophy from the Centre of Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Economics. Jawaharlal Nehru Vishwavidyalaya, Doctor of Philosophy from the Centre of Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Economics.
Voyage from rural Kerala to World Bank and UNICEF. She has served as a member in several of the expert committees set up by the Ministry of Human Resources Development, Government of India, to advise governments on education policies and practices. She has also carried out impact evaluation studies, learning assessments analysis, and helped several countries in the regions to work to set up an education management information system. She has also worked in Afghanistan, Maldives, and Bangladesh, focusing on analytical activities. She has authored several papers on the economic and financing of education, education quality and school effectiveness, and early childhood education.
She was a task team leader for several education projects and analytical and advisory activities in India, Sri Lanka, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and has served as a regional coordinator for early childhood development related work in South Asia. From February 2003 to June 2015, Deepa was a junior economist in the World Bank Education Unit, working in South Asia regions and Southern and Eastern Africa regions. Deepa Sankar has also served as a professor at the Center of Education Innovations and Action Research at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, India.
Dr. Deepa, after spending more than 12 years with World Bank, went to work as a professor at Tata Institute of Social Sciences and later as a consultant in Mongolia for World Bank South Asia region. In September 2017, she joined UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, as Chief of Education in Uzbekistan. Now let's watch a short video about UNICEF.
We are UNICEF, and with your donations, we're changing the world, one child at a time. How? By doing more good in more places for more children than any other organisation. We have 13,000 people in 190 countries. We hydrate, vaccinate, and educate millions of children every year. We built the largest humanitarian warehouse system on Earth. Think Amazon, only way more important. We drive aid convoys through deserts, land cargo planes on dirt tracks. We span time zones and work in war zones. We advise governments, influence corporations, and lobby presidents. And all to give every child what they need most, more than a chance to survive, a chance to be great. Because we don't see children as weak. We see them as strong, strong enough to change the world. UNICEF, help a child, change the world.
Uzbekistan is a country situated in Central Asia. It's known for its mosques, mausoleums, and other sites linked to the Silk Road, the ancient trade route between China and the Mediterranean. Uzbekistan does not have a territory connected to the ocean. Uzbekistan is the 56th largest country in the world by size, with an area of 447,400 square kilometers, and the 42nd largest populated country with a population of 33,469,203. The capital of Uzbekistan is Tashkent. The name Tashkent means stone village, referring to the city. The currency in Uzbekistan is Uzbekistani sohm. One Uzbekistani sohm is approximately 0.0077 pounds as of today. Uzbekistan is bordered by Kazakhstan to the north, Kyrgyzstan to the northeast, Tajikistan to the southeast, Afghanistan to the south, and Turkmenistan to the southwest.
88% of people in Uzbekistan are Islamic and 9% are Christian. The language that they speak in Uzbekistan is the Uzbek language.
UNICEF Rights for Children. The children's rights movement is a historical movement committed to the acknowledgement and expansion of the rights of children around the world. It began in the early part of the last century and has been an effort by government organizations, academics, lawyers, and judges to construct a system of laws and policies that enhance and protect the lives of children. Dr. Deepa Sankar has very generously contributed to the rights of children movement as she is Chief of Education at the United Nations Children's Fund, which was created by the United Nations General Assembly on 11th of December 1946 to provide emergency food and healthcare to children and mothers in countries that have been devastated by World War II.
In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take. Quoted by Lewis Carroll.
Now a speech from Dr. Deepa Sankar.
Dr. Deepa, if you could please unmute.
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much. This is one of the most flattering description of me I have ever come across. I know you people have really put in a lot of time and effort to even search my village, where it is, the features of the village. I'm really glad that you found out that this is one of the, the lowest places in India in terms of its altitude. Amazing details about my village, my school. Thank you so much. I'm really I'm really grateful that I could meet such creative children in this meeting. So I think you people have actually touched upon most of the things I wanted to tell you, but I will just give a little more details into that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you mentioned, I come from a very small village, and I grew up at a time when there was no TV. I grew up in a joint family with my grandparents, uncles, cousins, and a lot more people. What it has actually taught me, growing up in a joint family has helped me to really adjust and adapt to, society in a much better fashion, because when you grow up in a joint family, you're living with different kinds of people with different ideas, temperaments. So it's a good experience. It also taught me how to give and take. It also taught me to also care, respect, as well as nurture, because you're living with people of different age groups. But growing up in a traditional family also has its challenges. I grew up in a family which is more patriarchal in nature. So as a girl, it's quite difficult to really express your ambitions, express your desire. You're supposed to be, more subdued in a traditional family as a woman. So basically, there are a lot of hurdles to overcome when you come from such a place, and also a lot of glass ceilings to break. There are all kinds of stereotypes about what girls should learn, how they should behave. So it was actually a good experience to come out of that, because that actually has helped me later on in my life when I started working. And you may be amazed. I know you people living in different parts of UK, you might have actually seen half of the world, traveling probably to India, to your parents' native places. But for me, till I was like 17, 18, I had only seen my village. I've only lived between my family, visited a few places nearby, been to school. That's it. My world was very limited. So that way, you people are all very lucky, because you live in an amazing time, amazing place with very supportive parents. So I really think it is there are greater opportunities for all of you to develop. And what I learned, what is my education? As you said, yes, I went to the school, government school. I studied in Malayalam medium. And this was also a good opportunity, because there was no other school. So basically, everyone in the village, all the children come to the same school. So you're not worried about the class, caste, religion. Everyone came together and studied together. So that again actually helped me to understand child rights later on in a much better fashion. But other than the school, I have lots of other learning places or learning experiences. Amazing teachers who I'll say that the teachers are not just those who teach you in school. For me, my late father was a great teacher. He died when I was 10, but before that, what he really taught me is love reading, enjoy reading, and not just read, just question. Go beyond that and really explore things which is not really expressed in the book. So I think that was again an inspirational kind of experience to really read and grow. And for me, one of the challenges when I was in school was that the curriculum of the state changed, and I didn't have textbooks till I was in the last term of the school year. So in the first 6 to 7 months, teacher just taught something. But then that gave us a lot of time. There was no homework, no other assignment. So I had the great opportunity to go and visit a library in the village. And there were several books which nobody had even looked at. Things like, I don't know whether you have heard about Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the first Prime Minister of India. He had written amazing books like Discovery of India, Letters from a Father to His Daughter. So these are all the books I read as a school student, and that actually helped me also to decide what I want to do later. So I just decided that I'm more interested in humanities or social sciences, and I wanted to work in social sectors. So this was shaped by reading at that time. So for me, reading was a great teacher. But then what has also taught me later on is when I started working, I started visiting places. Worked in as you can see, I worked in something like 12 countries. And then within that, I have sort of seen gone to every nook and corner, visited every, what we call as the most marginalized or vulnerable child. So that exposure gave me a better understanding of the world, how countries are, how people are, the culture, the language, food, education system, belief system. So for me, I would also consider that as a great education for me. I'm still in the process of learning because of that. So that's about my education. And as you mentioned, yes, I started working in World Bank in around 2002 as a consultant, and 2003 as a staff. So what is World Bank? I think you had shown me this video about UNICEF. Similarly, World Bank is an international financial institute. This was also set up to support, post-World War II countries, which was, most countries were like devastated after the war. So this World Bank was set up to support countries to develop in social and infrastructure spheres. And they provide actually financial as well as technical support to countries around the world. Mostly they give it to poor countries or middle income countries, what they call as the medium level countries. And this involves a range of activities. And so basically, as all of you mentioned, I worked in India, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mongolia, Sudan, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ethiopia, kind of, these are the countries I worked for almost 12 years on a regular basis. So, this was again an amazing experience, because this also gave me an understanding of how children are in these countries. I worked in education sector, so I've seen, in 2003, when I started working in this huge India education program, you won't believe there were 25 million children not able to go to any school. They were out of school. And those who are in school, most of them didn't have a classroom where they could actually sit. There was no infrastructure, no benches and desks. There was not even a teacher in many parts of these places. There was no textbooks. Many people went starving. They were attending school starving. So this is in this scenario that we were trying to make a little bit of difference. It's not like, a human being can even change anything, but we were really trying to understand how we can help children. So when I left India program, we had reduced out of school children from 25 million to 6 million. There were still 6 million children out of school. Built a large number of schools, built classrooms, ensured that more children from poor background, the girls, children from marginalized group in India, and also children with disabilities have some opportunities to attend basic education. Similarly, Afghanistan, where after the Taliban thing, most children were out of school. Girls were completely out of school. So when I started working there, we could actually see more girls coming to school. These girls had lots of dreams. I know you have already read Malala's story, or you all know about Malala. But then there are more Malalas, or more smarter and more Malalas who are really courageous to come out and travel 12 kilometers just to attend school. We don't really hear about them because there are not enough stories of them. But I have met thousands of such people in Afghanistan, thousands of such girls and boys in Afghanistan. Similarly, in several countries. And in Africa, it is an altogether different story. They don't even have food. The country where I worked, Malawi, is one of the the poorest countries of the world, and these countries also have, unfortunately, people who run the country, the government of the country, who is not really, one, they are helpless because they don't have money. Second, they don't have commitment, and third, they don't really value children that much. So the effort is basically even having a focus on children in these countries. In spite of all this experience, what is it that I cherish, having met tens and thousands of such children, is that children around the world, they have the best smiles. They bring hope. They bring a kind of, they show how resilient they are to all the shocks of the world. They have curiosity, they have respect, and they're like, all of you are same. I mean, when it comes to children, there is no difference between a child in Malawi or a child in India or a child in UK. So children are basically children. And that's when I got an opportunity to join UNICEF. I decided to join UNICEF. Why? Because UNICEF is the UN agency specialized to look at children. So UNICEF's role is basically to fulfill and protect the rights of children. And UNICEF basically works in health, which includes also nutrition, immunization, etc., education, including early child development, and also protection of child's rights on several ways. And as you mentioned, UNICEF is present in 192 countries. So in UK, the role of UNICEF is basically to build awareness and bring more funding to UNICEF's child-related work. But in countries like India or Uzbekistan or Laos, Indonesia, UNICEF works basically with the government and communities to bring in solutions, very practical solutions and sort of strategies, so that, like I said, health, education, those issues could be addressed and children could really have rights, their rights fulfilled. So when I got this opportunity, so I joined UNICEF. This is like in 2017. Since then, I have been working in this country. Here in Uzbekistan, we work on, on building enabling environment, policy environment. So this country didn't have a child rights-based approach to their program. So bringing a new law on education, which talks about children's rights, which I will talk soon. So this is what I do here. We do a lot of studies, we do programs, and now, especially in the COVID scenario, we are also supporting some alternative learning solutions, like building a distance learning program. Now, sort of building awareness about, school reopening, safe and hygienic behavior, and also psychosocial support. Because just like, Jothi Leaders is giving you this platform, you have some space to discuss things. Many children in rural areas in several countries do not have that kind of a ecosystem which support them. So we are trying to work with government in providing them psychosocial support to cope with stress, cope with, all kinds of scenario which is currently here. So that's basically the thing. So when I said UNICEF and child rights, I would like all of you to also read conventions of child rights. UN agencies have been working on human rights since its inception. But then oftentimes what happens is children are human beings, but then you're not like any other human being, right? You are young people, you still need to learn, you're still under the protection of parents, but you still have your own aspirations, etc. So world leaders have been talking about how to ensure that children's rights are articulated. So in 1989, all the world leaders came together and made a historical kind of commitment. So this is called UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, UNCRC. So now we are actually 2019-2020, UNICEF has been celebrating CRC, 30 years of CRC. So for 30 years, these rights have been in place. So what are these rights about? So there are 4 core principles of this right. 1, non-discrimination, which means whether you are a black or white, you are a young child, older child, whether you are girl or boy, whether you are a Hispanic, a tribal, or any other race. You all have equal rights. Before everyone, you should have equal opportunities, equal rights. So one principle is non-discrimination. So you cannot say that, oh, this girl shouldn't do this boy can do this. No, everyone equal. So it's basically talks about equal rights, equal opportunities, and equity in everything. Second, all these rights talk about it should be in the best interest of the child. Oftentimes, adults don't see from child's perspective. They think about, I want to do this, so let my child do this. No. So all the rights are about best interest of the child. And then, as I mentioned, every child has a right to life, survival, and development. What is meant by this? Life is basically, they have the right to live wherever, however, according to the scenario. Survival is basically getting all the health, nutrition, support, all that, psychosocial support, cognitive development, etc. And development includes all these things, including, physical, psychological, cognitive, social, emotional, all those development. So UNICEF, while working on this non-discriminatory and best interest of child, also works on right to life, survival, and development areas. And while doing all these things, this cannot be made like, I decide it and everyone listen. It should be, views of children should be taken into consideration. And then there are something around 45 core articles in child rights, which start by saying that anyone who is below 18 years of age is a child. So they are entitled to all these rights. And every country which has signed into this convention has an obligation or a duty. They're duty bearers to ensure that children are getting all these things. So every country has an obligation to provide children with a good quality education, good quality food, nutrition, provisions for psychosocial support, everything, non-discrimination, all those things. And a particular article in this is CRC Article 29, which is about right to education. And I think you all mentioned about right to education in its different forms. So basically, right to education says that every child should have equal opportunity to access, accessibility, availability, affordability, and quality education. So this is what every right to education talks about. And if you have more questions, I can elaborate on that. And I would also, before I conclude on rights, I know in UK, I heard from Dr. Shobha that there is a rights respecting schools program in UK. This is UNICEF UK's initiative. And I know what that program is all about is that, children should develop a long-term commitment to social justice. Is what that program aims at. So again, as I said, children's voices matter. So they should be heard, valued, and respected. They should feel safe at school. One of the main problems, especially in OECD countries, is that international studies show that 37% children feel they are bullied in school. They feel harassed in schools by their own peer group or somebody else. So as a right-based approach or a safe school means children feel safe. They don't feel bullied or harassed in schools. And knowing this right respecting schools means we are building a society, a children who will become active citizens of the world, socially aware citizens of the world. They will be engaging in social issues. They will ensure their own well-being. They will actually also attain all those child outcomes we envisage. And to do this, what do schools do? They actually need to build knowledge. So there is a lot. I think You all have now child rights part of your curriculum if you're in a right respecting school. Then there is monitoring, ensuring that you're not bullied, you know your rights, you're actually able to reflect on that. And there is sort of empowerment. You all children are empowered to really express and exercise their rights. And then schools have policies which are child rights based. There is learning. So even in classroom, your pedagogy is basically rights based. No teacher has the right to say somebody on the basis of a gender or race as less good, or somebody is more good based on their any attributes. So these are kind of the things we are actually following in a right respecting school in UK. So this is about the rights. And then the last part about Uzbekistan, I think you already have mentioned about this. This is one of the most historical places in the world. This was the place, I don't know whether you know about Genghis Khan or Timur. So this is the land of Timur. Timur comes from one of the provinces in Uzbekistan. This was the old Silk Road where the trade happened between the West and the East. And then this was part of Soviet Union, as you know, in 1992. This country got independence from the Soviet Union. This country is rich in a lot of natural resources like oil and gas. They speak Uzbek and Russian. They have also, as you mentioned about the religion of the country, but this is not really a very how do I say, this is a mild form of religion. People are much more secular in practice than what you see in terms of this. They have their own traditional dance forms, art forms, music. They respect India a lot because they know the historical ties with India. And but unfortunately the problem in this country is that one, because Russian and Uzbek are the main languages here, and the global modern education is all in English or developed in English, the modern theories and practical aspects. They have limited exposure to some of the literature you read, some of the knowledge you have. So our aim is basically to support them to be integrated more with the global children or global community. I think I'll stop here and I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know whether I overstepped the time, but happy to give more details. And thank you for the patient listening.
Thank you. I was wondering whether you needed any qualifications or any experience work to get into UNICEF and maybe work for them.
Okay. So in UNICEF, there are not only UNICEF, any UN agencies or any international financial institutions. There are several ways of getting into or working into. So you need a university degree for sure to get any job in UNICEF or World Bank. Usually they look for a master's degree. But while doing master's degree, there are a lot of opportunities to do internship. So you can apply for internship. If you have a specific area of interest, you can write to either the UNICEF offices in several countries or headquarters. So I get a lot of requests from university students in US based universities. So what they come for during their summer vacation, work with some of us. So we give them an overall knowledge, experience of country, the work. So they work for 3 or 4 months. So they get some experience, then they go back and complete their masters. So that's one way of exposure to UNICEF or World Bank work. But then you can apply for various jobs. So there are jobs which is like generally starting like in World Bank, they have a program called Young Professionals. And in UNICEF or in UN agencies, they call us Junior Professional Associates. So which means you apply after your university degree or some experience saying that you're interested and you're ready to start at a junior professional level. So then you enter, then you work in several countries and gain experience and grow sort of as higher positions. In certain other cases, you have certain qualifications like you have PhDs and or you have specialized skills in certain areas, and then you have a lateral entry. Like the way I have entered UNICEF as Chief of Education is because I already have quite a bit of experience in international development, international kind of, education reforms, research experience, etc. Same thing in World Bank. So you can have lateral entry or start at a junior level and grow. And then there are a lot of other people like consultants. So these are not like regular jobs in UNICEF, but because you're expert in some area, so you actually and some country you have several country experience, then we hire you for giving specialized services, but that's for only like specialized services. So these are mainly like, you basically need to have a university degree. Experience is very good if you have, and then it's like your interest, how interested you are in this field. And along with all these things, there are something called competencies. So UNICEF or World Bank always looks for, you may be the best of a researcher, best student, but you need to have certain skills and competencies. What are the skills and competencies? These are basically related to your behavioral skills. So you need to be able to have that value for children, respect for people, teamwork, proactive in doing things. And so there are a lot of these skills. So they usually test you for that. When they select, they look at whether you're just, like somebody who is just good in marks, but they also look at whether you have an experience of working with children. Are you respectful towards children? Are you respectful towards different countries? Because when you work in these countries, you're not working in a very modern, developed society, like say, for example, UK, because UK is a developed country. When you work in Malawi, you're going to the poorest of poor. Their culture is very different. So you have to be very sensitive towards and respectful towards various communities and their so that you cannot really treat anyone as superior or inferior. You have to go there as a participant and work with them. So these are some of the factors they really look when they select people into these organizations. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Can I carry on? Can I follow that question?
Yeah, sure.
Rephrase it. What can children under the age of GCSE year 10, can they get exposed to World Bank or UNICEF? Can they get an internship? No.
Yeah. While there is no internship in many countries, and not probably in UK, because UK is considered as a developed country, their education systems are much more developed, and there are schools which is in charge of developing children. But in countries like Uzbekistan or any other country, there are a lot of programs for children. So what we actually do is, when we have like, I can give you an example which we just completed in Uzbekistan. From 2021 to 2025, we are developing a program for engagement with the government of Uzbekistan. So we are working on, okay, what is good for children? We don't decide it like, okay, between the government and us. We actually go to children. We have consultations with them. So we actually engage with children. We go to schools, or we invite children and parents to come on debates. They come and see our organization. They see our work. So those exposure opportunities are available in most UNICEF countries, most developing countries, poor countries. I'm not sure, because UK or US are not really a receiving country. They are more of donor countries for UNICEF. So they may not have programs where it is directly working with UNICEF. But definitely in other scenarios, yes.
Yes, can I just add to that as well, is that I think, as Deepa said, you need to be familiar with such institutions, their ethos, So, for example, in the UK, getting to know the rights respecting award itself is a big step, because the website gives information about UNICEF, the child-centered approach, the ways in which you can get involved. So some schools who participate in this award have made great strides in including children's voice, consultations with children, setting up a panel. So it will be good to get involved. And as Deepa mentioned, these are the competencies that you can develop even before you start applying. So it's important you build your competencies, your skills, your attributes, attitudes, and expertise and experience, volunteering, for example. So once you have this in your CV, wherever you apply, even as kind of as an intern or as a kind of, in a consultative program, these will be seen as a immense valued experience.
Dr. Deepa, thank you for your talk. It's just that, tagging on to the same topic, in Kerala, is UNICEF very active now? Because I happened to get involved recently when we had this lockdown in Kerala. All the teaching modalities were moved into online, and I came across a group of people who kids were not having any even access to electricity or television. So I was involved in a project in supplementing all those things, fortunately. So I was just wondering whether UNICEF had any opportunity to deliver those services in Kerala recently, or been aware of this thing. Just because you came from background, that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah. No, let me also tell you. So no organization, whether it is UNICEF or World Bank, can get involved in a country without country's request. So that's one thing. But talking specifically about UNICEF in India, so UNICEF has a headquarters in Delhi, which is a huge office. World Bank and UNICEF, both offices are situated in Lodi Garden area. But UNICEF also have 14 regional offices within India. So the one for Kerala and Tamil Nadu are located in Chennai. It's a very small office. There are only like 5 or 6 people. And right now it is headed by actually one of our friends. In fact, Dr. Shobha's classmate at CDS is really now the social policy head there. But the challenge in India is the focus is much more again on states which are much more in need. So there is a bigger office in Lucknow, catering to UP, bigger office in Hyderabad, bigger office in, even there is an office in Srinagar. But the southern office, which is for Kerala and Tamil Nadu, has a very limited role. And I think they work much more in Tamil Nadu than in Kerala. This is also because of the historical background of what Kerala government wants. So basically, there is very limited work of UNICEF in Kerala that way. Again, a lot more which is there is more about monitoring child rights, and also much more about immunization or nutrition kind of issues. Education is somehow like Kerala, everyone thinks is good just because of the literacy rates. But when I was working in World Bank and was managing Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which was like the biggest education projects, it was very evident that Kerala had enrollments, which is like all children go to school. But in terms of learning, Kerala was actually very average, even below states like Bihar, though it has improved. But somehow because of this wider impression that Kerala's literacy means education, sort of made everyone think that Kerala is ahead of other states. So Kerala never opened up on several fronts, though some 20-25 years ago when district primary education programs started, Kerala was actually one of the pioneers in first ever child-centered pedagogy and a much more competency-based curriculum. Unfortunately, because of the private sector taking over Kerala's education in a large way, and parents en masse withdrawing their children from government schools and putting them into what they call as CBSE schools. And this is one of the misnomers in India, there is no school called CBSE school. So the CBSE board exam is for grade 9 and 10, and then 11 and 12 together. So it's a board, not a syllabus. And unfortunately, people still don't understand. And somehow it deteriorated Kerala's public education system in a big way. Yeah, I hope that gives you some idea. And regarding the digital, I mean, the current scenario, I was really wondering because in Uzbekistan, within the lockdown, within 1 week, we really planned and started a distance learning program through not only online, but also through television lessons. And I know when I was in Africa, there was this Ebola outbreak. So we were actually supporting a lot of radio because schools closed. So it was all through radio because that was the only way children could be educated in several of the West African countries. But unfortunately, I thought Kerala lost the time between March to June because they didn't do anything in terms of thinking how to reach out to the remote and marginalized children. And even their television lessons are not well planned. So that's a general comment. Yeah.
Thank
you. Have you got any advice for any of the children that are planning to work in like the same type of environment as like UNICEF?
Okay, let me tell you this. I think what is most important is, when I started, or maybe when I was a student, I had only heard about World Bank and UNICEF. I had no idea that somebody like me could get into World Bank or UNICEF. But then what motivated me is I had a desire to work for the people, community. And I thought, okay, I need to really work in health or education. So in fact, I started off working my higher studies. I tried to work on health-related issues. And I really went to the field, to the coastal areas, to the interiors, actually going and interviewing families about their health care systems. And this was a new area when I was doing it. There was no health economics as such in India as a subject. So, and everyone sort of warned me saying, you won't get a job because there is no job related to this. So for me, it was not about, I thought, okay, I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for anything great, but I wanted to do something. So when I got a job also, one of the biggest challenging job, I was in a university. I was a faculty, a junior faculty. One of the biggest studies I got to do was actually go and interview, study HIV positive people, because I'm talking about 2000, which is like 20 years ago. And basically, government wanted to really see how we can give medicines at a low cost. So I had to go and find out who are these people, how much they are able to spend, whether they are aware of the challenges, things like that. So I actually then went and, really literally went to interview some 600 patients. Most of them, you cannot just, though you're going to hospital, you're randomly picking up a person to record the survey, but you have to listen to almost everyone in the hospital because you're a human being. You have to listen to them a lot. So my view is that those things like whether you get a job or an opportunity in World Bank and UNICEF is a later outcome. But the process is more important. The process is you go and you have a willingness to listen to the stories of people, understand their challenges, find out solutions and things like that. So as I mentioned in my earlier thing, when I joined World Bank, 99% of economists in World Bank comes from one of the big universities in US, Ivy League universities. Everyone is from either a Harvard or an Yale University, Columbia. So I was somebody who didn't have any of those things. But the thing is, I brought in some skills which were not available to many, which was like, I knew how to go to a field. I knew how to interact with people. I understood people in the field better. So in my view, what is important is developing those skills. And once you have that kind of interest in any subject, you try to also write it down, because at the end of it, you consolidate your knowledge, everything by making a journal or diary about your experience and what you learned from that. And when you apply for a job in UNICEF or World Bank or any UN agencies, this comes in handy, because at the end of it, they also see how resilient you are in terms of going to a vulnerable place, working with them. So in my view, right now, just one, focus on your studies. Second, read a lot. I think there is no substitute to the knowledge which is outside your school, because school is one place, but what you gain is also reading. I know you people have immense opportunities now because there is a lot of media, social media, television. You can explore knowledge everywhere. Third, along with that kind of knowledge, expose yourself. I mean, when you get I'm not sure in this COVID times, but when things are normal, I'm sure you will be traveling on vacation or visiting your families back in India. Just go around. I mean, not just go to touristy places. Go and try to see what our lives like. I'm sure if you go to a place, you will also find somewhere there are children moving around. Try to interact with them and understand their language, culture, lifestyle. I'm sure given the social media, you still can explore it because you can make friends elsewhere. You can ask questions about what is it that their aspirations are, connect with them. And finally, what is also important is I'm sure you learn a lot of languages because in your schools, other than English, you also learn several foreign languages. Try to use those languages because language is also very interesting because it gives you a sense of other cultures, and so that broadens your sort of experience. So I'll say study what you study in school, go beyond what you study in school, explore more, experience more, and then record it more. Like accumulate it over a period of time.
Could I please add to that? I have to say this. I am listening to what Deepa is saying, and all that comes through is that modesty. And Deepa, this is a great opportunity for our children to see you as a role model for two reasons. One, that what you have said now, for example, be reflexive. This is the word we use here. You are resilient, but also reflexive to see what is happening around you. You as a child, interact, find, question. And all that comes through reading. When you read books, through social media and so on, you have lots of sources of knowledge and learning. Teachers and schools are just not your sites of learning. I and Deepa come from a generation where maybe our schools and our teachers were far more important. Now you have a lot of lateral sites of learning, including this book club and the work that is being done here by Prakash and Bunai. I know they put more and above that is required to motivate children. So make use of this. Yeah. The second thing I want to say is, seeing role models like Deepa is so important because I am seeing Deepa now after 25 years. Yes. But what reminds me of her has to be noted here. She started as a junior to me, and I didn't know many of the juniors then. And one of our professors who worked in Cambridge, one day he came and asked, we were in the canteen, in the CDS canteen, and he asked us, and I was in that group, he asked me, do you know who Deepa is? And I said, I don't. And he said, she's written a brilliant essay, and I need to know who this girl is, And for me, I came again from a small hill town in the Nilgiris. I studied in Coimbatore. And I've never, ever done an essay before, okay? It was all exams. And to do essays were daunting in a big research institution. And Center for Development Studies is a world-renowned research center, but you get very little support for writing an essay. Yeah. And, to do an essay means you need to write, synthesize, develop those skills and competencies. And I did struggle. And, to know that, a junior girl did so brilliant and was noted. And now I know why, Deepa, because you came from a small village, but you broke the boundaries. You were reading, and the motto for this club is today a reader, tomorrow a leader. And Deepa, you are a role model for these children. So when these children ask these questions, you have to ask yourselves, are you doing enough? Are you doing enough in the environment where you are using your resources, you're learning? Are you doing much so that you know where you want to be? For example, in a place like where Deepa is now, that she gets to work with children and work in their best interest and advise governments and policymakers at a world level. And coming from that village in Kerala, you have achieved so much, Deepa. You're such a pride.
Thank you. No, it's just, I think I've been lucky enough to get a lot of opportunities, and I could use many of those opportunities. That's it. Thank you so much for your kind words, Shobha.
Modesty again, but that is the values we are looking for in our children as well. Whatever we achieve, we need our modesty and we need to look at our roots as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is like what we say in, I don't know, in Indian languages, we say that the tree who can grow bigger needs much more deeply rooted. So yeah, for me, I think I'm still very connected with wherever I come from, and I also get a lot of inspiration from children like who are here, because a lot of children have asked me difficult questions and I've tried to find solutions, and that's how I came back and I read, I explore wherever it is available. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to more questions. I'm happy to hear that.
What experience, skills, and books do you recommend we use?
Books?
Yeah. What do you recommend? Like experience and skills we need to do humanitarian jobs and careers.
Okay. I won't recommend, but I can share what I went through, my life experience, as I said. Again, when you're a child, you're more used to children's stories, moral stories, fairy tales, those kind of things. When I was growing up, I know your parents also, who all grew up in Kerala, knows there were the children's magazine called Balarama, Pumbata. I don't know. I'm sure everyone knows about it. So these books actually gave us some pictorial stories, some moral stories, some religious stories, poems. Most of it is. But then, as I said, my father was an active participant in those days in Kerala. There was something called Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, which is Kerala Science and Literary Movement. So as part of the movement, he used to get me a lot more to read. And these magazines, these organizations actually, through their literature for children, promoted what we used to call as ask questions. And what are these questions? Why, what, how? So it's like, ask questions, why cats don't fly, why crows fly, things like that. Why stars sparkle, things like that. So basically what I realized is, one, when you read anything, you start asking questions. So then you go beyond to explore. But when I was a child, one of the things my grandparents and parents insisted is reading India's, epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana. Not as religious text, but because these are huge in size, you read, you get more vocabulary, you get more types of complicated stories behind it. So understand that. So I've read all the religious books, not as religious books, but as literature to be explored. But once I was in grade 3 or 4, I started reading the literature which generally older people start reading, the novels and all in Malayalam. But fortunately for us, those days, Malayalam literature, there were a lot of translations from world classics and Indian classics. I understood very limited of the world literature then. I've only read things like, Les Miserables or things like that. But then I also learned a lot about the Bengali literature, the Marathi literature, Kannada literature, etc. In your place, you may have different kinds of, like you may explore other language, other culture literature. But what I would say is don't limit yourself to stories. Read more about, books which are more about politics, or like, travelogues. In my childhood, that was my only exposure. And you won't believe, I have read, there is this famous writer called S.K. Patakar, who used to visit several countries and write about those countries. And some of the things which I read, so he read a book called Simha Bhumi, which is the land of lions. And later when you go to Africa, you go and see all this, the big five animals and all, you are sort of reminded of course, this is like a generation apart, not just one generation. He wrote in 1950s and 60s. And I went like in 2010. But still, you get a chance to compare whether world has moved or not. So read a lot of travelogues because I think it's good. Read a lot of how do I say, historical books. Like I said, I when I was in grade 7 or 8, I read Jawaharlal Nehru's the letters from father to his daughter, as well as Discovery of India. So what is available in history textbooks is often limited. Oftentimes it is also written by certain people with their political views. But you read it, and then again later you read some other books, you get a chance to compare and contrast different people's writing. So in my view, I won't say read this or that, but I'll say as children, you should explore everything possible. It's also important to read poetry, because poetry actually enhances your ability to appreciate language, aesthetics, etc. So in my view, everything is important. It's up to your discretion what difficulty level you would like to read. So, but that also comes with, when you read more, you get more interested. You will also able to, engender more complicated words, concepts. So, read whatever is interests you. Don't limit yourself into one category or other. So that's my, I don't know, I mean, whether I answer your question, but I can think beyond just, suggesting any particular book.
Thank you. Also, what's your mantra for life?
Mantra for life?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about like a specific mantra, but as I said, when I was growing up in a joint family, one of the things I learned is I've never, you have to always think about others. So for me, one of the biggest responsibility was I was one of the older cousins. So I had like 6 or 7 cousins who were all like much younger to me. And me, the thing is, I have to really show them the right path. So fortunately, because I did what I did, and it became easier for all of them in terms of exploring life, life decisions, etc. So, but as I mentioned, when I was growing up in this joint family, something which I learned, which has stayed with me forever, is like you cannot think for yourself. You have to be like, the Indian, the old culture we say Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, which means the universe is your family. Everyone is part of you. So wherever I go, I try to say that this is my country, my people. I have to work for them. So, I'm now in Uzbekistan, and I never think of this as not my country. This is my country. So, people here often say that you're part of us now. You're part of our thing. So, I feel very happy. So, for me, that is the mantra is wherever you are, adopt it as your own. Work for them. That's how I don't know. That's how I have worked in all these countries. I don't know that's sort of a mantra, but yes.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I want to ask a little question. Like, how do you balance out the two different cultures or like societies like we live in? Because we're Indian. Because like some of us are like struggling to manage. Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, how do I manage different cultures, living in a different country and with your own culture, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one is basically, see, I have lots of things which are very Indian and culturally specific to me. For example, I'm a vegetarian, so I live in a country which is like they are like 100% meat eaters. There is no dish without meat. But I work in a country where, one, you have to give respect so that you can gain respect. So one of the things, one, be frank about your own cultural specifications. When I came here, I was very open, and also many times you get into a culture which are very racial. I am in Central Asia where they think that only a European can advise them because they think that all other culture is inferior to them. So one of the things is you have to demonstrate your sincerity. And that's like being very patient with people here. At times, people make rude remarks. Government may something. So you have to be really polite and just listen, accept it. Over a period of time, they understand you, appreciate you in terms of certain things. Certain behavioral thing, I was like my preferences. I have been very open about that. So wherever I have been, I request politely that, but I don't disrespect what they eat. So I have had challenges because when those kind of things, people respect me because I respect them in other aspects. Coming here, again, specifically about adapting culture, the good thing about India is not one uniform culture. You might, when you go to Kerala, you might only see Kerala culture. But even Kerala itself is such a amalgamation of cultures in terms of food, religious beliefs, cultural aspects, everything. But come out of India. So when I was working in Delhi or studying in Delhi briefly, I used to travel by train, and that train takes 3 days and 2 nights. And when you travel from Kerala to Delhi, every 1 hour you have a station where it stops. And every stop, there is a new food, new language, everything is new. So I've been very open about eating all kinds of, very different food or exploring the language. So I can understand almost like 11 languages in India. Wherever I go, there is no difficulty for me in understanding those languages. That's because I've worked so much. So initially, as a Malayali or a Keralite, we are always taught, like when we are in Kerala, that Kerala is such a number one place in India. This is like, it has its own quality. But when I started going to rural areas of India in, say, Jharkhand, Bihar, Assam, Chhattisgarh, even Gujarat, Rajasthan, I realized that everyone is good in certain aspects. They have everything. Everyone has equal human quality. And that's what I said, that exposure helps you to adapt into a new culture. And when I started working in other countries, Afghanistan, the time I worked, I used to go there covering my head, being, I had to follow whatever the traditional beliefs, but not being very regressive in approach. So for me, that kind of exposure over a period of time help you to adapt to a new country. And Uzbekistan is also just like India. It has family values. It's very traditional. So it's not very difficult in a way. So I don't know whether that answers. But basically, that's what I said. Exposure is very important.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, ma'am. My name's Nandana, and I had a question as well. From all the travel experiences that you've had, which place resonates close to you?
It's interesting question because each place I have been to has its own amazing, geographical places, cultural factors, something which amazes you. I really cannot pinpoint one country and say, okay, this is great. But But I have to say that, I feel what I'm fortunate about by working in World Bank or UNICEF is that compared to many of my friends or say counterparts who have been to, like, when there is a vacation, people go to Europe, Switzerland, or Germany, France, UK, US, or New Zealand for vacation and see this most amazing developed world. I have not really been on a vacation to any. I mean, I've been to most all these countries, but I've never been on a vacation that way. But I've been to some of the places which nobody else probably will visit as a tourist. So I have been to Mongolia, some of the most remote places like Bayanulgi, which has got this amazing Kazakh nomadic groups. And I've stayed in their school dormitories. And I can tell you there is no toilets in these places. They have only like, pitch toilets. So I was very shy. I mean, living there in those tents for like 4 or 5 weeks, I was like, you have a lot of inhibition to shed. You go and, do your things in heights. So these are kind of things nobody would have ever done, like you go and then because I didn't have, I don't eat meat, I basically ate only fruits and raw rice. I mean, cooked rice. I mean, with no curries or no yogurt. I was very hesitant to drink the milk there because it was all camel, horse milk fermented. So I was like, oh, how can I drink it? I mean, So, and they serve tea with salt. It's not like sugar tea or plain tea. They put salt into tea. I mean, so these are experiences you hesitated initially, but you grow, grow love. And then 10 years later, I again revisited Mongolia on another, as a studying thing. Things were changed. It has more modern restaurants, and they were able to serve me different kinds of things. So that's one place. Another place is Afghanistan. I really don't think anyone in our generation has gone to Afghanistan to see its beauty because it's still a very turbulent place. So I had the opportunity to really go to several places, and people fear about Panjshir Valley. It's a location in Afghanistan which is very close to Pakistan, and that's where a lot of Taliban terrorists move in and out using those routes. But I have had the opportunity to visit those amazing places. It's beautiful. It's almost like, if it were like normal situation, it could be like Kashmir or any other beautiful place. I feel most people don't have a chance to visit those places. I've been to Sri Lanka's northern and eastern part when it had a civil war going on. It's again, like those kind of. So at times I feel, and as I said, I was in Malawi working there for years, and so I feel that these are places not a normal person will go on a pleasure trip, but I had the opportunity to see, and I cherish those because they were different, unique, but it also opened my mind in terms of looking at, when we hear about Syria, ISIS, we have a totally different view, right? But because I've been to places, I know, no, there are also normal people, there are associations of people. Interacting with them have always been amazing experience. I even have interacted with Taliban students, which is usually not normal for a foreigner in a country. But for me, the most surprising thing is they said, help us with computers. Otherwise we think that they're now going to take the gun and shoot you, but they were amazing. I've been to interior places in India, in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, where we have Mao, which is also an extreme kind of group. And usually government officials also don't visit such places. I went and for me, amazingly, they all requested education for their children. They said, give us schools, give us teachers, because nobody is ready to go and teach. These are basically illiterate parents. So for me, these are my most vivid memories about visiting places.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
My name is Anantashree. I also have a question.
Sure, Anantashree.
You got an award from UNICEF recently. Can you tell us about it?
Okay. So UNICEF every year, because UNICEF works in 192 countries, what they do is in every country, every office carry out some research every year, basically all related to children. They try to understand how children's rights are fulfilled, or what are the challenges. So there are different forms of studies and evaluations. What they do is they look at, so there is an office of UNICEF mainly devoted to research and studies. It's based in Florence, Italy. It's called UNICEF Innocenti. You can also visit that site. So they look at what are the reports or the studies which UNICEF offices completed in the last 2 years. They look at the study and then look at what study has maximum impact or maximum benefit for children. So last 2 years, they looked at the studies which was completed in UNICEF, and then they found that I did a study here in Uzbekistan. The study is basically trying to understand how children are learning in this country, whether children are learning adequately, what are the factors which help them to study better, what are the factors not helping them to study. So which means we can also then try to improve their education. So this study basically then they are now selected it among the top 10 research of last 2 years. Health, education, they look at all the areas. And now I think they will also evaluate and say what are the top 3 or 4 studies. That is in the process. But now it is in the top 10 studies. In this study, what we found is that because of the education system, curriculum is not like the countries like UK. It's much more based on rote memorization. Because of that, children know if they are taught 10 plus 12, they know 22. But if you ask it in a roundabout way about some questions, probably they are not able to apply this addition as a knowledge and say, this is how it is done, how this is important. So we find that children have basic knowledge, but they don't have higher order skills. That's one thing about the study. Second, the study also shows that children, so this is an important thing, since you are in a reading club, I have to say that all the global studies, international studies, have shown that children at whose home is enriched with books, so children with more books at home, reading resources, families who encourage them to read, those children do much better in learning. So this study also said in Uzbekistan, children whose houses have more books to read, where the parents encourage them to read, where even as young children, parents read out stories to them, those children were doing much better than children who didn't have any books to read at home, whose family didn't encourage them to read. So that's one thing. Second thing, as I mentioned about the safe school, in Uzbekistan also we found around 40% of children feel, they said they're bullied at school. People, shout at them, people make them scared of things, they don't fear. So children who is less bullied or not bullied do much better. So it's again related to child rights. So school has to be safe school for children to perform better. And then, of course, another important thing is teachers are very important in terms of facilitating your education. Teachers who don't encourage you with more reading, etc., those children were not doing well. So basically, the study said we have to make curriculum more broader and make it more competency based. We have to encourage children to read more. We have to create safe environment in school. We have to ensure that teachers also fulfill all the rights-based approach. And with this, we actually is reforming the curriculum in Uzbekistan. And then we are ensuring that there are So we have a social protection program, which is about benefits given to families. So we are saying that some part of the benefits should be earmarked for buying books for children to learn. So these are some of the reforms which is coming out of this study. So the study is now among the good research done by the UNICEF offices around the globe.
Thank you. Who's asking? Go for it, Richard.
Okay. Miss, my name's Richard. How does UNICEF manage relationships with each country?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So UNICEF is an organization where all these 192 countries are member countries. So there is already, all countries are committed to UN and then UNICEF. And then in each country, the UNICEF has an office, wherever UNICEF has an office, and there are teams. So what we do is, all these countries also are aware of what is UNICEF's role, what UNICEF can do. So we develop what we call as a country program. So as I said, in Uzbekistan, we have a country program for 5 years. So we actually, what we do is, we actually do a situation analysis of the country in terms of children and all areas related to children, whether it is health, education, child protection, social policy, etc. And we share it with government, and we discuss it with government and ask them what kind of support we need. So government also is offered support by World Bank, Asian Development Bank. In these countries, there is also Islamic Development Bank. There are bilateral agencies like UK government has a UK aid. Earlier, it used to be called Department for Foreign Defense, International Development, Department for International Development. There is US aid, which is a bilateral agency of US. So all these agencies come to government. But the government also knows each organization has its own mandate. So all the governments know what UNICEF is working is on child rights. So they know that we will be looking at child rights. So every office of UNICEF has a child rights monitoring officer who will be tracking how the country is doing in terms of fulfilling child rights. And UNICEF also, because these are all diplomatic relations. So we actually negotiate certain things to be in place before the country can do other things. To give you an example, in Uzbekistan, for several years, there was child labor. Government used to enforce children to go and do certain work. So there is a season called the cotton cultivation season. And usually there is not enough farmers. So the government used to ask children in school and teachers to go to the cotton field and, do the plucking and processing. And this was actually started during the Soviet time, continued for several years. But then something like 6-7 years ago, that was the first time World Bank, not World Bank, it was Global Partnership for Education. It's a global alliance of all countries and people who want to support education sector. So they came, and through World Bank, they wanted to give a grant to government of Uzbekistan to improve education. But one of the first thing we said, so UNICEF did a report saying that almost all children are, forced to do child labor, which is not acceptable. So we prepared the report. Then ILO, which is International Labour Organization, came up with a strategy how to eliminate child labor in the country. It was only when all these things are agreed, and then UNICEF said, we will monitor that